Hey there guys and gals, welcome to another Dungeon Tiles unboxing. We did do the Wilderness tiles previously on this channel, and I just went ahead and got the City tiles because they were also on sale. Because I feel like a lot of like D&D encounters and what have you happens outside of town, but sometimes you gotta be in a town, you gotta be in a city. Not all of it is, trekking through the woods or going through a dungeon. So I figured this would be a good pickup for me. A lot of the stuff I've previously kickstarted or bought is also for like outdoor, but nothing really happens in the city. And I wanted to grab this because I feel like it'll be helpful. So we're gonna open this bad boy up. I'll show you all the tiles that are inside of it, and you can make a purchase decision if you'd like. Remember, before we even start, that these tiles are definitely dry erase. I don't have a wet erase marker to test with, so I can't help you on that front. But I know that these tiles are in fact dry erase, so if you want to dry erase some spell effects or what have you on them, you totally can. That's part of the beauty of them, realistically. Obviously, this is way easier to open than a lot of the other stuff I do because it's just you cut the thing open and you cut the cellophane open and bam, you're here. Basically, they're like, yo, civilized doesn't mean safe. Dun, dun, dun! But you take this little slip cover off, essentially. Super cool thing about the Dungeon Tile series is that not only is it filled with Dungeon Tiles for you to use, but in addition, it is also, the box itself can be used as Dungeon Tiles. So it's got the grid on it and everything, and you can use it as a raised surface, and then you can flip the back of the box as well and use it as a surface, which is pretty cool actually. They didn't have to do that, but they did, and I'm okay with that. This also makes it easier to open. I'm just going to take this out of here because I'm realistically not going to end up using it at all. You get a pretty big stack as per usual. You do have to pop them out, but it's super easy to pop out. Obviously, I'm going to take the cellophane off in a second. They are double-sided, and you get quite a few in one set. So if you give me one more second, I will pop these open as well. Remember that the official tiles are obviously way thicker than a lot of the stuff that you get elsewhere. Like, this is thicker than Dungeon Craft, clearly. It's pretty thick. And that makes them pretty durable. Obviously, this is no indication because it's supposed to pop out. As you can see, the perforation there. But what do we got? We got a nice little town well and waterfall, a fountain. Looks like we had some interiors, which is good because you're probably going to need interiors here and there. Some part of the less nice part of town. Obviously, the sewers. Everyone has to have a trek through the sewers in every campaign has to have at least one trek through the sewers. Like you can't make it through a campaign without going on a trek through the sewers. Let's be honest. More sewers on one side, and then above that on the other. Docks. I have a feeling in my campaign personally, I'm going to be running into a lot of docks and seafaring, so I'm happy with this kind of stuff. Not everyone will be, but I think it'll be helpful for me and my players. Remember that everything in here is on the 1-inch grid because that is the default grid for Dungeons and Dragons. Realistically, while it may look a little unprofessional, you could merge 1-inch grid stuff with 1.5-inch grid stuff without there being too many problems. So like some of my stuff is 1.5-inch grid. And when I get the Tarragon tiles, they're going to be a 1.5-inch hex as opposed to grid. Those will probably look a little weirder, and it'll be harder to merge them per se. But realistically, you want to do whatever you can to give your players that good experience. You want them to feel immersed. So, sure, it may not be perfect, but if they're having a great time, they're not going to care. One thing you will notice on the official Dungeons and Dragons tiles is that they have triangles in some of the spaces. And I did a little research, and there were people who commented on the previous video that I put out. The triangles mean it's difficult terrain. So, like, if your characters were trying to get past these crates and these barrels here, it would take double the movement. I don't know if, because I haven't played previous editions of D&D, I don't know if triangle was the original denotation for difficult terrain. Obviously, since I'm relatively new to Dungeons and Dragons and I'm a relatively new DM, I've done other things. I never thought of putting a triangle in there, but it makes sense because like triangle is like a yield sign. Like, oh, you should be ready for this. More sewers, more piers. I'm okay with that. Nice bridges with some statues and stuff. That's cool. That's cool. I'm down with that. There's a lot more sewer tile here than I was hoping for. I'm excited for stuff like this. Like, it's harder for me to tell myself that, like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to buy donkeys or mules or, like, horses and carriages. Like, that's what I'm going to go out and buy. Warranting a purchase for that doesn't really... I personally am like, I don't want to do it if I only have to do it once. But in sets that come with them, I'm super excited because that means I don't have to go out of my way to buy a mini or print a mini of a horse and a carriage. Not that that affects everyone the same way, but I think that's great in tile sets like that. Junk is also good. Stuff to put in your rooms to make them feel like they're lived in. Because when you're playing D&D, you want the world to feel lived in. I think this is almost an entire duplicate, at least on this side. The sewer side might not be that much of a duplicate. But hey, your party is going to be in the sewer at some point, let's be honest. That's just the way adventurers be, yo. Ooh, a swirling vortex of poopy water. Let's go. Ah, perfect. Stalls, market stalls, and other things like that. Get your players to know where they're going. Especially if you don't have like merchant NPC minis. It's much harder to come across or to like warrant getting an NPC purchase for me than it is if it's like, oh, here's a monster I'm going to use. Or, oh, it's a player character that someone wants to use or someone will be or that I can fit into the world. I guess in that case it's an NPC. But when it's not an adventurer, I mean, like, it's harder for me to go out of my way to be like, I want to purchase this stall keep. Like, yeah, I don't feel that excited about it, so I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? Cool. This would be good. My players are potentially building themselves an adventurers guild, so stuff like this is kind of cool. Maybe it'll help them out. This looks like a fortress. This is definitely a square fortress with some battlements and stuff, bridges and stuff. But that was cities, and to be honest, the city tiles aren't as normal and mundane as I expected them to be. It still ended up being more like, oh, this is where your characters do things. Because I know a lot of DMs don't build a cityscape for their players to go around. You just tell them what's happening or you describe it to them. A lot of DMs only make maps for encounters, which, hey, I don't expect to be building full cities and stuff like that, obviously, but it's good to have small areas of the city that I can show the players physically, be like, oh, here's what it looks like. I think that's important. You want them to be engaged, and while I'm not saying theater of the mind is bad, it's just not the way I want to DM or the way that I want to play Dungeons and Dragons, so, or any other tabletop RPG. I like physical, in person, touching things, holding things, being able to turn to the person next to you and like see the look on their face. You could do that with Discord or what have you, but I don't know. I think in-person D&D is, for me, subjectively, is the superior way to play. But yeah, that was everything in Dungeon Tiles Reincarnated City. This is more... It's less mundane things than I expected it to be. Like, I expected a lot of alleyways or just buildings to walk past. But this still seems like, oh, there's a couple little things you can add here and there, but it's mostly stuff that you'd be going into an encounter for. Besides the piers. The piers, I think, are more boring, if that makes sense. And I'm okay with that. That's why I wanted this. I wanted more, like, boring things for my players to be able to see and experience. So if that's what you're looking for, the city tiles are probably the way to go. Really quick way to build up some encounters, and because they're double-sided, you're getting double your purchase price. And remember, the Wizards ones are pretty thick, comparatively speaking, so you don't have to worry as much about them getting ripped or torn. Like, a lot of the ones that I play with are like a single sheet, and they're like thin, and I know that if I cut them up and people start like moving them around and getting them, like hitting them with things or what have you, they're going to get messed up. Like, these I think will last a bit longer than stuff like Dungeon Craft and other things that are similar. But there's one more set of Dungeon Tiles Reincarnated, I think. I think it's the actual dungeon set, but I probably won't get that because I have enough stuff for it. I have enough non-mundane things already. But if you guys like what you saw, leave a like if you want to see more content like this. And I'll see you guys and gals later in the next one. I'll definitely be amassing more D&D stuff in the future because I am now hoarding as if I were a dragon, and I can't stop. And there's so many cool things. And I know this is a thing all DMs get into where it's like, oh, I have all this stuff that I'll never use. And to be honest, that's fine with me. I have plenty of other friends who DM, and if they ever want to play a home game, like I have a spreadsheet now and I have all this information, like if they ever wanted to, they're more than welcome to borrow my stuff. So I feel like even if I never get to use it, at some point I think someone will. So that makes me feel better about the purchases that I'm making. And obviously I'm still getting a whole bunch of stuff from Kickstarter because I can't help myself anymore. So yeah, I'll see you guys and gals in the next unboxing. Until then, bye!